The Prime Minister held an emergency news conference at the Prime Minister's residence today. He said that a new force would need to be brought in to realize his policies, and he announced his resignation. This is the Prime Minister speaking earlier tonight. He says that he began reformative measures that were for the people, that included reform of road taxes and also a consumer affairs agency, and also a fundamental overhaul of the social welfare system. He says here that although these measures were not fully finalized, he was able to give a general direction. In the earlier parliamentary session, the DPJ was against these measures and they stalled for time. Because of their stalling tactics, it was not possible to make decisions. He says that it was a fact that it took time to decide on anything. He says he felt that the same thing must not happen in the upcoming session of Parliament, and he decided that he would need to make a change. He says that any kind of political power play at this point, which would create a vacuum or harm the people, must not be allowed to happen. He says that a new force and a new leadership team would need to be brought in order to realize the policies, and for that reason he decided to resign and is making his announcement today. He says that the economic measures and also more discussion is needed for various deliberations. However, some decisions have been made on the economic policies, and also the Consumer Affairs Agency. Now was the time when it would be least disruptive to the people of Japan, and he feels that he can task the LDP to carry on these measures. When he looks back on the past, he is confident. He says that he is confident that he was able to create a foundation for further reforms.
Now we have a live report from the official residence. The news conference began at 9:30, and after that, the Prime Minister is in his office. With his resignation, the whole official residence is very busy. The Prime Minister spent about an hour with the Party General Secretary and the Chief Cabinet Secretary in this building. And usually, after all that, in the evening, he would meet with reporters. However, today, Mr. Fukuda did not show up, and then we received information that there will be a news conference from 9:30. The Chief Cabinet Secretary stayed in the official residence, and Mr. Shionoya, the Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, was also called back. The Prime Minister cited the fact that the comprehensive economic package was put together last week. He said that it was the right timing for him to leave now rather than later. The Prime Minister said that under a new leadership, the policies need to get implemented, and he said he decided to make way for that purpose.
Next, we go to the LDP headquarters. This is the LDP headquarters. The Prime Minister made a surprise announcement to resign. Oshima and Harada party executives came to the headquarters. Many party leaders are gathering here. Secretary General Yasuo met with Prime Minister Fukuda earlier today for about 1 hour. And when reporters asked Yasuo if the conference would be about parliamentary affairs, he simply said yes. Since then, he has not come back to the party headquarters. Right before the conference, the party executive was notified that an announcement would be made in the press conference. This executive was said to be surprised. Prime Minister Fukuda decided that it would be best to resign before the parliamentary session began. Now, with Prime Minister Fukuda having made his announcement, the LDP will need to begin the selection process for its next party leader immediately.
The former party secretary general of the LDP, Hideo Nakagawa, said that he is totally taken aback and surprised. And Yukio Hatayama, a senior member of the DPJ, said that Mr. Fukuda should have actually called a general election and asked for the view of the public, and it was irresponsible for the Prime Minister to resign this way. And the parliamentary affairs chief of the DPJ says, oh, not again. And it shows that the LDP is not really thinking about the parliament or the public. And it is typical of the LDP, and they are so irresponsible.
The Communist Party Ichita told NHK that this shows how limited the LDP politics is, and the LDP should call a snap election.
Hisaoki Kame of the New People's Party says that this was so sudden, and he doesn't understand why now, the reason now. And he says that the public would probably not understand why the Prime Minister had to resign now. He says that the Prime Minister may have buckled under pressure from within the party, and his predecessor was irresponsible, but he turned out to be irresponsible as well.
Overseas media have also picked up news about Fukuda's resignation as well. The AP agency from the U.S. said that the Fukuda administration was struggling with a low approval rating and also with a power distortion in Parliament. However, he resigned only a year after taking the helm. Reuters says that bills could not be passed in the Parliament since the opposition bloc controlled the upper house. Korea's KBS TV reported that Prime Minister Fukuda held an emergency news conference and announced his resignation. KBS TV reported in its 9 o'clock news hour that Prime Minister Fukuda was resigning because of his low approval rating. The BBC also reported on its internet website that the Prime Minister had announced his resignation, that he was resigning before a year since taking the helm. Also on its website, the BBC says that the Prime Minister had lost approval because of the pension scandal and medical scandals.
We have reactions from the street. Do you know that the Prime Minister is to resign? No, I've never heard of that, says this man. The man says that this was too early. He says that if the early resignation leads to an early recovery of the economy, that could be good. This woman says he should have hung on for longer. This man says the approval rate was so low, and the Prime Minister was not really showing any clear political direction, so it was to be expected.